The twin sons of Aquarius IV had barely crested the horizon when Lieutenant Mira Chen strode onto the observation deck of the Interstellar Defense Academy. Before her, colossal viewports framed a panorama of jagged coral rock spires and cobalt seas that shimmered with alien bioluminescence. Early morning drills thrummed through the corridors like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Yet despite the Academy's reputation for cutting-edge weather control, there was unease in the air, an electric tension that made the hair on Mira's arms stand up. At the far end of the deck, 4 Zorket cadets clustered around a holo display, their lean forms flickering in shifting shades of pearlescent green and violet. Zell, tall and inquisitive, tapped at the screen, sending ripples of light across its surface. His companion, Ron, quivered with excitement, fins flicking as data scrolled past. Tilan's antennae drooped in thoughtfulness, and Sear's 3 eyes danced with silent laughter at some private joke. Mira offered a polite nod, but they barely registered her presence. Cadet curiosity was universal, her species included. Mira pulled up her own datapad. Academy sensors had just upgraded storm activity from level yellow to level amber, precautionary, but nothing to interrupt training. Still, the barometric reading struck her as odd. Pressure drops faster than any simulation she'd seen. She tapped through layers of atmospheric scans, heart ticking up a beat. "Lieutenant," called Captain Varela, striding in beside her. The captain's dark uniform was streaked with remnants of salt spray from last night's patrol. "Morning, Chen, you've seen the forecast?" "I have, sir," Mira replied, pointing at the readings. "The cyclone's forming 300 kilometers north by east, but look at this gradient." She zoomed in. "It's accelerating toward us faster than predicted." Varela leaned close, brow furrowing. Could be a transient jet." "But you're sure the models haven't glitched?" Mira shook her head. "Check them twice. There's a disturbance in the ionosphere. Solar winds spiking." She tapped a coordinate. "If it holds, we'll see level red within the hour." A sharp alarm bleeped across the deck. The holo display blinked scarlet. The 4 Zorket cadets jumped apart as the system's voice finally crackled through. "Attention all personnel. Atmospheric instability imminent. Storm protection protocols. Engaged. Level red warning in effect." Ron's fins bristled like a startled creature. "Terraborn human, is that as dire as it sounds?" he stammered, his voice bubbling with worry. "It's serious," Mira said, voice steady. "We need to secure the lower decks and move non-combatants to shelter." She turned toward Tilan and Sear. "Cadets, follow me. First, double-check your life support units and tether lines. Then report to Hangar Bay Delta for evacuation. Drills." Tilan's antennae perked up and she clicked her mandibles in agreement. Sear frowned thoughtfully, then snapped to attention. Zell hurried over to Mira's side. "Lieutenant Chen," he said, "your recalculation saved us precious minutes. We will assist however we can." Mira allowed herself a small, tired smile. "We're a team," she replied. "Let's keep it that way." As they headed for the exit, the sky outside darkened to bruised indigo. The twin suns vanished behind thick swaths of racing cloud. A distant roar, like the breath of some gargantuan beast, echoed through the canyons. Behind them, the Academy's massive doors slid shut with a blast of wind, sealing in corridors designed to withstand any tempest, except perhaps one born of cosmic fury. And so they moved into the gathering storm, cadets and human alike, hearts quickened by the promise of danger and the call of the unknown. Rain began as a whisper against the reinforced glass of Hangar Bay Delta, tiny pinpricks of light as droplets struck the surface. Within minutes, the whisper became a roar. Water slammed into the bay's exterior shields, creating a staccato of thunder that rattled bulkhead panels. Emergency lamps flickered from white to warning red, casting long shadows across the cavernous space. Zell and Ron scrambled along the catwalks above the hangar floor, scanning for fast-closing floodgates. Below them, torrent after torrent of acid-neutral coolant water surged in through microfractures no larger than a fingernail. Tilan and Sear, tethered to the central support column, shouted calculations at each other, gauge readings, pressure levels, flow rates. but their mandible clicks came out garbled over the storm's din. Mira Chen sprinted down a graded ramp, boots splashing through ankle-deep water. She shivered as the cold hit her bones, but her jaw was set tight. "Ron, seal, that valve," she yelled, pointing at a corroded access panel gushing 1/2 meter of water per second. The Zorket cadet's slick fins folded against his back as he twisted a manual override wheel. The valve groaned, then clenched shut with a final hiss. Still, the water kept rising around their knees. Overhead, the hangar's bulkhead hemispheres groaned. A low-frequency tremor rattled the support struts. Tilan's antennae vibrated, with alarm. "We can't hold them much longer," she squeaked, glancing at her data pad. The system estimated full inundation in under 10 minutes, and the flood, fed by unseen fissures, showed no sign of abating. Mira's eyes darted past the trembling shields toward the far wall. Maintenance platforms, half submerged, floated, like skeletal rafts among drifting crates. An idea struck her. With the right materials, she could build a temporary craft. But first, they'd need to regroup. "All right," she called out, voice steely. "Fall back to the east corridor. Keep your tethers tight and watch each other's backs. We move on my mark." As the cadets nodded and slid down the ramps, the water leaped higher. Within seconds, it surged over the first step, turning the corridor into a rushing, white-capped channel. Zell's tail fin slapped the wall as he kicked against the current. Seer's 3 eyes shone brightly with both fear and resolve. Together, drenched and driven by necessity, they prepared to retreat, each heartbeat echoing in time with the storm's relentless pulse. Mira's boots squelched as she crept through the thigh-high floodwater, eyes darting for anything solid enough to build a craft. Overhead, A-grid lighting hummed and flickered. The storm's electromagnetic interference had the backup generators, sputtering. Around her, tangled masses of maintenance piping, buoyancy bladders, and tether cables drifted like flotsam. "Zell, cut those tubular supports free," Mira shouted against the roar of water and wind. The tall Zorket cadet dove beneath the surface for a tethered spanner, then reappeared with a length of corrosion-resistant alloy pipe. Ron kicked forward, grabbing coils of synthetic rope from a twisted pallet. Tilan and Seer hauled debris racks clear of the current, creating a makeshift supply staging area around a battered support pillar. Mira knelt in the swirling water and began lashing the pipes together with rope, looping the strands around welded flanges in tight, cross-hatched knots. Each time a wave crashed into the hangar, icy droplets slapped her face, stinging like needles. Sparks flew when her wrench slipped against an exposed conduit. She yanked her glove free of water and pressed on, sweat mixing with rain in her hair. "Align the buoyancy cells along the underside," she instructed, gesturing toward the yellow-capped flotation canisters drifting nearby. Seer clicked in acknowledgement and secured the cells with extra tether lines. Tilan adjusted the angle of a reinforced beam, ensuring the craft would cut smoothly through the swift current. Zell hammered a final clamp in place, the echo ringing through the cavernous bay. At last, the outline of the raft emerged, a rectangular platform of 4 alloy beams, buoyancy cells evenly spaced beneath, and a raised perimeter of rope netting to prevent slipping. Mira tested its stability by pressing down with 1 foot, then 2. The raft bobbed obediently, riding the churning water like a leaf on a storm stream. "Good work," Mira panted, clambering aboard. "Secure it to that pillar. We don't want it drifting off before we're ready." Ron tied the final knot, the rope cinching tight around corroded steel. As they worked, the flood peaked, water level climbing faster now. But the raft, sturdy and seaworthy, awaited its crew. Mira looked at her 4 alien cadets, each breathing hard, their bioluminescent scales flickering from pale green to deep teal in the emergency lights. "This is our ticket out," she said firmly. "Once we launch, stay low, paddle with me, and keep your eyes on the exit gates. We're not safe until we're beyond that blast door." The storm's fury only intensified, but inside that improvised raft lay their only hope. With every knot tied and beam secured, Mira felt her confidence grow. In the heart of disaster, ingenuity proved stronger than panic, and a humble raft might just save them all. Mira grasped the raft's rope netting and pushed off from the battered pillar, as the torrent's first real roar hit her ears. The makeshift craft lurched and swung in the churning water, but the buoyancy cells held firm. She tucked low behind, the raised beam scanning for the first cadet in distress. Not 20 meters ahead, Zell was slamming his forearm into the flood, exhaust etched into every scale. His grip on a floating training pod was slipping. One powerful wave could send him under. "Zell!" Mira shouted, leaning over the rail. She drove a paddle blade into the current, digging her weight against the pull of the flood. Each stroke was a gamble, but the raft responded, edging closer. With a final heave, Mira swung the raft alongside Zell. He hooked his arm over the rope edge, and together they heaved him aboard. His scales glowed faintly as he scrambled to a corner, winded but alive. Behind them, Ron's screams carried over the din. He'd tangled in a snagged electrical cable, sparks dancing on the water's surface. "Watch your back!" Tilan cried, but the cable whipped toward him. Without hesitation, Mira lunged, gripping the live wire with a gloved hand and yanking him free. The arc sizzled past her shoulder, but Ron tumbled onto the raft, face pale but grateful. 2 cadets to go. Ahead, Tilan and Seer clung to each other, adrift near a whirlpool formed by half-open blast doors. The whirlpool's rim churned like a hungry maw. "Hold on," Mira barked. She cast a coil of rope toward them. Seer caught it in one of his 3 hands, and Tilan latched on as well. With Zell and Ron anchoring the other end, Mira leaned, back against the raft's frame, muscles burning, and pulled. Inch by inch, they fought the current until both aliens tumbled aboard. Now, with everyone aboard, Mira shoved a floating maintenance panel under the front beam to break the worst of the downstream flow. The raft steadied, guiding them toward a sloping exit ramp in the hangar wall. Lightning flashed overhead, illuminating the open blast door like a mouth of promise. They rode the last wave together, paddles synchronized, hearts drumming. When the raft scraped onto the dry ramp, water sluiced off its edges and into a sump grate. Cadets collapsed onto solid ground, gasping, alive. Mira stood at the rail, chest heaving, eyes on the storm-darkened vault above. They had escaped the floods, worst, and in doing so, had forged a bond stronger than any storm. When the last surge of water receded, a hush fell over Hangar Bay Delta. The emergency lights flickered back to steady white as technicians sealed the blast doors behind them. Mira Chen's boots sank into puddles that now swirled with debris, twisted panels, shattered crates, and fragments of long-forgotten drills. Around her, the 4 Zorket cadets sat on overturned tool chests, wet, shivering, and blinking against the harsh lights. Ron, still pale but smiling, tapped a rhythmic stutter on his buoyancy cell, Zorket for thankful. Tilan adjusted her antennae, which glowed a gentle turquoise, signaling calm. Zell rose to his feet and approached Mira, offering a small, crystalline shard. The token, smooth and multifaceted, glimmered with inner light. "In Zorket tradition," Zell said, voice soft, "this crystal signifies a bond forged through challenge. It is yours." Mira accepted it, the cool facets warm in her palm. I don't know what to say," she murmured, eyes bright. She glanced at Seer, who tapped both his extra hands against his chest in a gesture of respect. "I could never have done this alone," she added. "You all were brave too." They rose together, the 8 feet and 10 hands of their small fellowship forming a tight circle. Outside, the storm had passed, gray clouds parting to reveal the twin suns, low on the horizon, casting dusky lavender light across the hangar's flooded floor. A hush fell, and for a moment, the disparate species simply stood side by side, letting relief wash through them like warmth after cold. Moments later, the Academy's senior officers arrived, Captain Varela at their head, flanked by engineers and medics. As they approached, Varela's stern expression softened into a rare smile. "Lieutenant Chen," he called, voice echoing, "and cadets of the Zorket cohort, you have shown courage, ingenuity, and unity under fire. The Academy and the Interstellar Defense salutes you." Medics began to wrap the cadets in thermal blankets and run cursory checks. Mira accepted a towel and draped it over her shoulders, ribbons of salt water drying into her uniform. The officers stepped back, allowing the small team to gather once more. Before departing, Tilan clicked a modest chirp and produced a small hollow emitter from her utility belt. With a press, holographic petals, each coated with protective runes, bloomed around them, then drifted away into the drying air. "For safe travels," she translated. Among stars and storms alike, Mira felt her heart swell. "Thank you, my friends," she said. "I'll carry this with me always." She touched the crystal in her pocket and looked up at the fading storm clouds. "And whenever I think of Aquarius Warfur, I'll remember that, even in a flood, I was never alone." As the group dispersed, cadets to medical bays, engineers to repairs, and Mira to file her report, each carried with them the memory of shared peril and the discovery of trust across worlds. In the days that followed, greetings in the academies, corridors shifted. Humans offered nods of respect to the Zorket, and alien cadets paused to ask Mira after her well-being. The flood remained a cautionary tale in the annals of Aquarius IV, but above all, it became a story of friendship. An ordinary human building a humble raft and in so doing, forging bonds that spanned the gulf between stars.